2007. I'm working nights at the ArcLight in Hollywood, not the Chinese theater down the street. It's the ArcLight with the big Cinerama dome attached to it. Back then, it was the only place in town where you could actually pick your seat, and it was where filmmakers went to watch each other's work. I just moved across the country to be an actor or writer, and I found the one job that didn't feel like a job. And here's the part that mattered the most, though. This was 2007. Everything still ran on film, real prints. And before a movie opened, the projectionist would test the reel, which meant I got to watch that week's new releases completely blind. No trailer, no reviews, nothing. Just me, a few other coworkers, an empty screen, and whatever was about to unfold. And this was part of my film school. One of those nights, it was a movie about a broken-hearted guy who fixes vacuums for a living, and a Czech woman he meets on the streets, and together they make music. The film was Once. I had no idea sitting in that dark room that it was about to become one of the most important films of my life. A few days later, at the premiere, in walks Glen Hansard and Marketa, Irglova. I was the one about to introduce the film that night because the ArcLight had us do that. Get up, hype the movie up, hand it over to the crowd, and it was part of the job that I love the most. But I didn't know that they were coming. I'm pretty sure it was a surprise drop-in, one that you probably would see on social media these days. So I quickly had to rewrite my entire intro standing at the side of the theater. And what should have been a 30-second introduction of a film turned into about 3 times that, because I couldn't shut up about how much I loved the film. Before I went out, Glen and Marketa, they were just there, kind of making small talk. He had his guitar, the one from the film, the one with the big hole, and the one that shows just how much its owner has used it. And I was one of the few times where I was a complete mess. Not necessarily starstruck, but the feeling you get when you want to just be able to tell someone how much you appreciate their work without coming off like a complete lunatic. They had no idea that their movie had just rewired something inside of me, and I was about to stand in front of them and tell the entire room of strangers why. I stumbled through it though. The crowd didn't care, and then Glen and Marketa sang the song that would go on to win them an Oscar right there before the movie even started. Lights went down, my shift ended, and I thought that was it for the night. It was not it for me and Glen, because after that, the Oscar Once became a Broadway show, which I caught a preview of. Kristen Milioti does a incredible job as the girl. A few documentaries, tours, a few more albums, and eventually Glen went solo, somewhere between massive artist and completely independent. And it never mattered which, because the man could fill any room and make it glow. Nearly 20 years later, I've seen Glen Hansard live at least 10 times in 5 different countries. And if you've ever been in one of those rooms, if you ever heard him tell a story in between songs, watched an interview, you know it felt like somehow he was talking directly to you. You already know that number isn't crazy at all. You know that, seeing him as many times as I did also feels like a few times. The last time I saw Glen was a few months ago in England. I went alone, I made a friend, and I had a great evening. And on my way out, I saw his tour bus and decided to wait. Not for a photo, not for an autograph, but just simply to reconnect and talk. I'd been gearing myself up to ask him to be on this very podcast and a few other things I had been doing professionally for some time and never got around to it. But this time, I wanted to say, Glen, it's so good to see you again. It's been nearly 20 years since Once, and you've given me more than a movie or an album or a concert ever could. You sharpened how I see other people, how I see myself. I've watched you keep pushing your own work even when it was already great. I know you've buried a parent, watched loved ones come and go, and you've become a father. And I connected to every bit of this journey, parasocially or not. So thank you for staying open with your audience, for staying that open with me. And next year, I want to bring you and Marketa and John Carney, the director of Once, back together to celebrate 20 years of this film. And I want you there. And I never got to say any of it because I had to drive home. I had work to do, and it was pushing midnight. And after about 20 minutes, which in my days of waiting around to speak to people is not a lot, I had to give up the ghost. But I know he would have let me ramble. He already had once, all those years ago, standing next to me in a hallway before a show that changed both of our lives. I'm recording this because last week, Glen Hansard died in a car crash, a motor accident. He was 56, and he leaves behind a partner, a young son, his bandmates who will remember him, his peers who will remember him. Every room he has ever built will remember him. And certainly because of my own trauma and issues with death and grief, this feels too close to home. I don't know exactly what to do with this yet. I don't know how to process it, to be perfectly honest. But I know if he were here, he'd say something to me right now, something more poetic than I could manage, about how feeling like this means that you're human, and that I'm human, and that I care, and that there's blood moving through me. And I can hear him saying something like that. I've watched interviews where he had said something similar, even though I never got to say my part first, right? So Glen, I'll miss you. I love you. And thank you for everything. I'm thinking about you and celebrating you, and I'll be doing that for a long, long time. Take care, folks.
In a way, I feel like we all have to drag ourselves out of bed in the morning. Whether you're Bob Dylan, Leonard Cohen, Matisse, whoever you got to drag yourself out of bed, you got to drag your clothes on, you got to get into your day. You got to get to work.